Our story today is a true story that happened one day in a large city. It began on a cold morning when a farmer walked into the police station, dust still clinging to his clothes, his face pale with fear. The officer on duty, a quiet, intelligent man known for his sharp intuition, was sitting alone at his desk when the farmer burst in. The farmer stood trembling before him, clutching his hat in both hands. The officer raised his eyes calmly and asked, "What did you find?" "The body of a child," the farmer whispered. "Where did you find it?" the officer continued. "In the field." "Which field?" "Mine." "And how did you find it?" "Dead, and in a sack." The officer's eyes narrowed. What was his condition when you found him? Had he been dead for hours or days? The farmer blinked innocently. "He died hours ago," he replied. "And how do you know that?" the officer demanded, scrutinizing the man's every movement, every hesitation, every word he uttered. The farmer answered as simply as he lived, without embellishment, without confusion. When asked about the child's age, he said the boy looked about 8 years old. By the time the questioning ended, the officer was certain of one thing: this man was not lying. He was too simple, too transparent, too frightened to invent such a story. The officer and 2 constables followed the farmer to the field. There, beneath a thin layer of sand, inside a worn-out sack, they found the small body. The child's face was peaceful. There were no bruises, no cuts, no signs of strangulation. Nothing suggested violence. The officer knelt beside the child, troubled. If the child died naturally, he wondered, why hide him in a sack? Why bury him in a field? He ordered the body to be transported to the morgue and sent instructions to print and distribute the photograph to nearby police stations. He returned to his desk, waiting for 2 things: a missing child report and the coroner's findings. Days passed with no report of any missing child. When the medical report finally arrived, it stated simply, natural death. No poison. No internal trauma. No foul play. But the officer's instincts screamed otherwise. "Is it conceivable," he murmured to himself, "that a child who died naturally would be put in a bag and thrown into a field?" He expanded the investigation. Messages were sent to every town and village nearby. At last, a reply came back. "Yes, we have a report about an 8-year-old boy." "Who reported it?" the officer asked. "His father." The officer traveled immediately to the man's house. Standing before the father, he withdrew the photograph from his pocket and held it out. The officer traveled immediately to the man's house. Standing before the father, he withdrew the photograph from his pocket and held it out. The father looked once, and tears filled his eyes. "Yes, this is my son." "Why did you delay reporting his disappearance?" the officer asked, his tone steady but probing. The man's voice shook. "I work in another city. When I returned, I asked my wife where my boy was. She told me he went to his grandmother's house." "And where does his grandmother live?" "In another city." The officer studied the man with the calculated eye of experience. "Is your wife the boy's mother?" "No." Do you mind if I search your house? I have nothing to hide, the father replied. The officer and his team searched the house room by room. Nothing unusual, until the officer stepped onto the small balcony. There, on the dusty floor tiles, something caught his eye. He knelt and looked closer. Faint scratches, so faint they were barely visible, formed lines of childish handwriting. He called for a flashlight and angled the beam across the floor. Slowly, painfully, the words emerged. I love my mother, and I hate my stepmother who locked me in the balcony. Now I am dying of cold. She is the one who put me here. The officer felt a chill run down his spine. The writing was uneven, trembling, as though written by frozen fingers. This was the key, the missing piece. The child had not died naturally. He had died slowly, silently, freezing behind a locked balcony door while his stepmother ignored his cries. Instead of calling for help, instead of admitting her cruelty, she had hidden the body in a sack and arranged for it to be dumped in the farmer's field. The officer stood up, jaw set. The mystery was solved, and justice would be served. The stepmother was arrested that same night. During questioning, she broke down, confessing her cruelty but insisting she never thought he would actually die. But the writing on the balcony floor told the truth: the boy could no longer speak. His last message, written with fading strength, became the voice that brought justice. And thus, a true story that began with a simple farmer and a quiet officer ended with the uncovering of a terrible crime hidden behind a veil of silence.